it's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Steve Wendel. Steve is a behavioral social science scientist at Hillel Wallet in Washington, D.C., where he conducts original research on savings behavior and coordinates the research efforts of Hillel Wallet's advisory board. In 2013, he published a Designing for Behavior Change, which describes Hillel Wallet's step-by-step approach to applying behavioral economics and psychology to product design. Before joining Hillel Wallet, Steve co-founded a political consulting and research firm that employed machine learning and stimulation techniques to predict political behavior. He holds a BA from UC Berkeley and a master's from Johns Hopkins and a PhD from the University of Maryland, where he analyzed the dynamics of behavioral change over time. Please join me in welcoming Steve to the stage.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody. It's really a privilege to talk with you all today. If we could bring up the slides as well. So, as Andy mentioned, I'm a behavioral social scientist, which means I study the quirks of the mind. I study why we say that we want to do one thing, and then we don't follow through. We do something else. Like that key lime pie sitting in front of you. You initially sat down and said, oh, no, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to eat that. And he was just looking there at you, staring at you, asking to be eaten. I mean, it felt lonely, right? It just feels wrong to leave it alone. And so that's what I look at. Okay, not your key lime pie. I have my own, don't worry. I'm not going to take yours. There you go. But how many of you in your daily work and working with students and working with adults have asked, why don't they do this? Why don't they just exercise more? Why don't they manage their money? Why don't they eat healthier, putting aside the key lime pie? How many of you felt that frustration? Yeah, especially after you put your blood, sweat, and tears into a curriculum, into a training program, into looking at somebody eye to eye and saying, this is really important. These are the things that you yourself asked for. You signed up for this course. And yet, they don't actually follow through. And so, you're not alone if you've encountered that. I'm looking for a clicker. Hey, that is a clicker. Great. So this is one study which is close to my heart, but unfortunately there are a tremendous number of examples I could give you. So this is in the personal finance realm, which is where I spend a lot of my time, where it's a study by James Choi at Yale and a number of others, where they took a large company and said, all right, how many of you feel you should be saving more? I know the family and consumer sciences deal with a variety of issues. One is money management, of course, along with healthy eating and others. So I could give examples in many other domains. But let's say, okay, they asked how many of you should be saving more? 68% yes, I feel I should be saving more. They saw the problem clearly, self-identified. They asked, okay, how many of you are going to take action right now? How many of you are going to save more in the next 2 months? More than enough time. 24% said yes. And then they actually studied what happened, and 3% followed through. Don't think of your own students. Don't think of your own people, really. Don't think of particular names. But how often do we encounter this? Where there's something that we know is good for the individual. They themselves say, yes, this is important to me, but they don't actually follow through. And so too often we're tempted to think, wow, we just need to be clearer about the benefits. We just need to tell people how important it is to save, to exercise, to manage your money, to grow your business, whatever it might be. And we think if we only yell louder, if we only tell them with greater clarity, with greater force, how this will benefit their careers, how will it benefit their lives, then they'll be better off and they'll actually do it. And sadly, that really isn't the case. Instead, the reasons people don't take action when they say they want to, the reasons people don't take action on the things that are good for them, has to do with how our minds are wired, how we think in our daily lives, how we're subject to temptation, how we procrastinate, how we forget. And that's what behavioral scientists look at. all the other things but motivation, but the things that we think are so important, exercise, etc. Why do all these other little details, these human frailties, get in our way? And when we understand those frailties, when we understand those particular obstacles, we can help people follow through and make good on their own desires and fulfill the promise of the family and consumer sciences. And so that's what I'd like to talk about today. After a short introduction, I want to talk to you about why we all struggle. Not our students, not the people we work with, but why we all struggle. Why this is a common human problem. And then how you can find the particular obstacles that the people you're working with are struggling with. And then, of course, how you can overcome them without resorting to yelling. So, very briefly, oh, by the way, you'll quickly see that I'm a very informal person. So feel free to ask questions, yell out things. You can also say, Steve, slow down. I get tremendously excited about these issues. I love behavioral science. I love studying this. And I have a tendency also to dance around the stage, clap, laugh, whatever feels appropriate. So I'm Steve. I'm head of behavioral science. Actually, I recently changed jobs. Until about a month ago, I was at the company Hillel Wallet, as Andy mentioned, which is a personal finance company, helping people save for the future, pay off debts, etc. And Hillel Wallet was acquired by a larger company, eaten up. And so my new role is at a company called Morningstar, which is, I'm the head of behavioral science there. I run experiments to understand what helps people manage their money, what helps them invest better, what helps them think about their finances, etc. Something I know that many FCS folks work on. And my job in particular is kind of the mad scientist behind the scenes. So I run formal randomized control trials, experiments, right? The type of stuff they do when they're testing whether a drug is going to kill you or not, right? Lives are on the line, all that stuff. So I've run hundreds of these to figure out what gets people engaged, what gets people over the hump, what actually helps them save. And then that's kind of my day job. My night job is writing about these topics in health and in finance. So I study things like the Fitbit, Jawbone, like exercise trackers, the new wave of wearable health, and what helps people exercise better, eat better, exercise more, eat better, etc. So with that, let's talk about how we're all just really frail people. This is the downer part. We'll get up later, okay? I just want to warn you, okay? Get your coffee, get your whatever you need to get through this dark time, because that's what it is. So over the last decade, there's been an explosion of research in the behavioral sciences, where for too often we thought, well, if people just know the importance of savings, if they know the importance of exercising, they'll do it because they'll make a rational calculation. It's good for them. And so, hey, they'll think about, okay, what do I have to give up? In the long term, I'm going to be better. I'm going to live longer, whatever it might be. And behavioral scientists looked at that and said, well, wait a minute. There's a small problem with our theories, and that's that they're wrong, that they don't actually bear out what happens in reality. It doesn't bear the frontline experience we have all had with everyday folks. And so, how many of you have seen books like Nudge or Predictably Irrational? Okay, so a few of you. They're studies about these quirks of the mind and what stops us. And if you were to think about these quirks, I think probably the best way is, let me give you an example, okay? So this is an interactive example. Sorry guys if you weren't expecting that, but there'll be a number of these. So there's a great research by Danziger and others where they looked at judges, professionals in their field, who were deciding whether people should get parole. Very serious question. Whether people who are potentially violent criminals, who could be a real danger out on the streets, whether they should be let out, or on the flip side, people who have done their time, have been redeemed, and should be returned to their community. There's no clear answer here. And so these are folks who have spent a lot of time thinking about this very important question. And they looked, and the researchers looked over time, and they saw a very strange pattern where parole rates would start at about 70%, and then go down to about 0. And then they jump back up to about 70%, back down to 0 over time. Who here is familiar with this study? Great. If you are, quiet. For everybody else who isn't familiar with Danziger's study, tell me, what do you think was going on? Why would parole rates vary so much over the course of time? Elections, nice, okay?
Overcrowded jails.
Ooh, overcrowded jails, very nice. Okay, so there's an external cyclical factor. There's either they're concerned about their jobs, they're concerned about how this is going to be viewed. They're concerned about, well, there just aren't enough spaces, right? What else? What else might be at work here? And I'm sorry, I'm standing very close to the edge. One, because I like risk. And second, because I want to be able to see you guys as you say stuff. So, yes?
I wonder about money to support parole.
Right. So she said, was there money to support the parole system? That probably changes over time as well. Any others? How about one more from this side? You guys have been quiet, especially back there. I'm looking at you. Yeah, that's right. Oh, see, now somebody walked in front of you, but I'm still looking at you. Yes. Thoughts? They get softer as they go along, and so perhaps we're getting a new crop of judges. So all of these are reasonable, viable answers, and there have actually been a variety of studies that can support many of these positions. But not to this extreme, not to this huge variation from 70 to 0. What was going on was lunch. I intentionally didn't tell you the time frame. This is in the span of a day, repeated again and again and again, day after day. Yeah. It's called glucose. It's just glucose in the brain. That's it. And the reason is, what researchers have found is that as we get tired, as we get hungry, we have great difficulty making complex decisions. And I don't mean complex with a capital C. I mean what somebody does every darn day in their lives, trained professionals. We are simply that frail. We tell ourselves stories to hide from, oh, it was just a bad day. When we do something stupid, right? When we make a mistake, we tell ourselves stories. But in fact, the biology is that strong. It's called Selfregulation. A guy named Roy Baumeister is the head researcher in this field. He's got a great book called Willpower, which is full of examples like this that show over the course of a day, over the course of an hour, how depleted we get in our mental resources, literally glucose in the brain. And that if you ask somebody a series of questions like, okay, so how much do you want to spend on your next house? Where will it be located? Okay, well, what are the mortgage rates? What do you think is the best decision here? And they go through all the complicated decisions that one has to make when buying a house. By the end of merely 10 questions, 15 questions over the span of 30 minutes to an hour, they're just as depleted. This is why candy is in the final aisle of the grocery line. It is, actually. Long before any of us got into the business, these guys were selling cigarettes to kids and candies to us, right? They knew how depleted we get, how tired we get, how subject we are to an environment. And so you can think about this. So in terms of defaults. So if you ask, this is a prime example from the retirement space, where if you ask people, do you want to save for retirement? The answer is almost always yes. If you ask people, do you want to be so dead broke that you have to live in your parents' basement when you're 65? They will say no. It's pretty clear cut, guys. People want this. But yet, the act of filling out the form that says, yes, I want to save, is tremendously difficult. So if you take that desire to save, and you say, okay, don't worry, we've checked the form for you. Here's the form. You can change it, no problem. We're not coercing you. You can do whatever you want. Boom, like that, you get a 30 to 40% increase in the number of people participating in their retirement plans. That's how frail we are, checking a darned box. It's because we get distracted, because we procrastinate, etc. Now, one way to think about this is that, again, we're not this fully conscious, rational self thinking through what we want to do in every choice in our lives. We're not thinking about the exact caloric intake. We're not thinking about the location of where those particular limes came from, whether they were treated with pesticides, how long they've been sitting on the vine, sitting on the tree, whatever it might be. We don't think through all these details. We wish people would. I was just talking about the key lime pie, by the way. That was a confused face. Sorry. Sorry if my example was a little... I was going back to the key lime pie. Sorry. Instead, you can think about it as this very different 4-part story of the mind. That where we like to think that we're conscious and rational, the mind is really of 2 parts. One is conscious, rational, etc. The problem is it's usually not in control, at least not of our behavior. It's control of our thinking, not of our behavior. Separate those 2 in your minds. Behavior is not thinking. Instead, over 50% of our behavior is controlled strictly by habits. Habit is the outsourcing of your behavior to your environment. That's what Wendy Wood, the leading researcher in that field, describes it as. A habit is when you smell the coffee, you walk into the coffee shop, you buy it, you're drinking it, while all the while you're thinking about your job. Your thoughts are somewhere else. Your habits control your behavior. Your habits are when you're driving. You're not thinking about the thousands of minute muscle movements that you need in order to stay on the road. No, you're thinking about that jerk who just cut you off. Your mind can be somewhere else. And so that's 50% is about habits. More than that are our intuitions, literally our gut feelings. They come from what psychologists call system 1. It's an older part of your brain driven by emotion, driven by pattern recognition. The conscious part is called system 2. Psychologists are tremendously creative people. And these 2 work together. These 2 work together in wonderful ways. They allow us to take action in our daily lives while thinking about something else. But the problem is, when we're talking about eating, most eating behavior is habitual. We're talking about driving, we're talking about exercise, when we're talking about our patterns of daily life, they have nothing to do with our conscious choices. But even when we are consciously thinking something through, we're horrendously imperfect. Behavioral economics gives structure and meaning to the phrase, we're only human. It tells us again and again how we're limited in attention, how we're limited in willpower, like the example from Danziger on judges, how we're limited in our mathematical abilities, etc. And because of that, tiny frictions, sorry guys, I'm going to be doing that a lot, tiny frictions affect whether we take action or not. Whether that pie is in front of you, or whether it is off to the side and you just have to reach for it a little bit more, has a very strong determinant on whether you'll eat it or not. How tired you are, etc. And so we're not dumb. Our minds are actually quite clever in finding ways to get around these limitations. One way is, I look and see whether other people are eating the pie. I'm sitting at your table because you guys have some self-control. Oh, no, those are the seats where no one is sitting. Sorry. We look to our friends, we look to our peers, we look to our environments. And so we take cues, we take shortcuts, mental shortcuts. And a lot of behavioral economics is about finding the shortcuts that support action, helping someone act. One of these should work. Actually, I think that little Adobe icon just stopped us. Can we advance one? Actually, let's do a little dance. Okay. Could we advance the slides a bit? Oh, that's fine. Okay. So why does this happen? I'd love to advance the slides, but I can also talk. So why does this actually happen? Now you can think of, well, decades of research and hundreds of researchers, and you can compile that into a set of known obstacles to action, okay? And you can do it in a cute little acronym that I'll show you shortly called CREATE. In order for someone to take action, 6 things need to happen, okay? First, let's say it's exercising. First, you have to get their attention. To exercise at that exact moment. What else are they thinking about? What else are they trying to do, right? Well, they're thinking about their job, they're thinking about their kids, etc. How do you get their attention? At that moment. And then once you've got their attention, then your system 1 reacts, right? That's your implicit sense of, gut feeling. Is this a good thing? Do I want to exercise or not? Do I not? Yeah, maybe I look really awful in those gym shorts. I don't want to go exercise. It's your emotions. It passes. Here we go, cute slide. So you can think of it as these 6 things. Cue, reaction, evaluation, ability, timing. I talked about that cue that gets your attention. The reaction is your emotional, implicit reaction to your environment. Split second. How many of you know Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blank? Great, so quite a few of you. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about that split second reaction we have. And for many people, even though what we're asking them to do is something they want to do, is good for them, is great, they don't get past that emotional reaction. And we have to understand that, we have to dig into it. Now, if they do get past that emotional reaction, then it's a question of the cost and benefits. Then it's a system 2 response. Then it's thinking, is this right for me? What are the costs, what are the benefits, etc. And if, in fact, the benefits outweigh the costs, then it's a question of ability. And ability in 2 ways. First, do you have the password to go onto the site to look up your nutrition facts, right? Or do you have the ingredients you need to cook a particular meal, whatever it might be? But there's another part, which is self-efficacy. How many of you in the last 2 days, in the last week, did something that you knew you were going to absolutely fail at, and you were going to be a flaming disaster, and people would laugh at you not in the good way? Anyone? Just a few of you, right? I'm up here, so that counts. But most people, we don't do this. Our minds prune these opportunities from the tree. They don't exist to us, right? At this moment, there's an infinite number of things you could be doing. Right now, you could be standing here right behind me and twirling like a ballerina, but you're not. And by the way, I think that would actually be a lot of fun, so I welcome you too. But we don't. Because we know that we will fail. Because it is so foreign to our experience. And so the problem is, experts in the field, like I work in personal finance, I think about saving for the future, right? And I think, okay, great. How much do you need to save for retirement? Well, no big deal. You look at how long you're going to likely work. You look at how long your spouse will work, probability of periods of unemployment and how long those will last. You want to look at, of course, the interest rate regime. You want to look at inflation. You want to see, of course, what's going to happen with Social Security, because we know, of course, with great precision, what's going to happen with Social Security in 30 years. We want to think about, of course, how long we're going to live, what medical problems we're going to have, and then just put it in a calculator and do some compound interest calculations, and you figure it out. For most people, that's the equivalent of coming up here and twirling like a ballerina. Which again, you should. It's so foreign. You know that you will fail before you start, and so you don't start. If you were to ask me, so I got this great recipe for a pumpkin something muffin. There was some other ingredient in there, which you can see. Apple, yeah. Pumpkin apple muffin, which looked wonderful. And I have put it in my bag, and I seriously thought, wow, I should really do this. And there is no chance on earth, because I know already what it's going to come out tasting like, and it's not what the person intended. I'm not even going to start that action, because I don't have the sense of self-efficacy. It's not that I can't do it. That's something else. I think you'd be a great ballerina. It's not that you can't take the action. It's instead that you don't believe you can. Self-efficacy. It's tremendously important. If you actually can get past all of that, wonderful, bless you, good job. Then it's a question of urgency. Many of the things that are good for people are absolutely important, just never urgent. So for example, retirement savings, or for that matter, exercising. You really can go to the gym tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you don't go today. There's no difference whatsoever. And you can go tomorrow, and you can go tomorrow, until you fall off a cliff. That's the problem. Where's the inherent urgency in exercise? There is none. I'm sorry. As much as we value it, as much as we know how important it is, or for that matter, eating healthier, McDonald's today really isn't going to hurt you. The problem is doing that over a lifetime, or doing that over a year. At any given moment, there's no inherent urgency. So how do you make that urgency? How do you provide that? Motivation is not it. These are separate processes in our minds. Whether something is important and whether something is urgent is a different question, and we often confound the two. Now, throughout all of these is the question of prior experience. The way that we judge the way that we have that emotional reaction, the way that we decide the costs and benefits, are all overwhelmed by our prior experience with this action. If you tried to get somebody to cook, if you tried to get me to cook that pumpkin apple muffin, which looked wonderful, and I failed, there is so little chance of getting me back. It is much easier to get fresh, to trod fresh snow than it is to bring somebody back who has failed. And so we have to be so very, very careful about those first-time experiences that people have. And so let me just give a quick example of an exercise program. How many of you guys work on exercise, healthy living, that type of stuff? All right, so a good group. So let's say you had 100 people, let's even say 100 of your colleagues, okay, who all see the value of exercise, right? They all believe in it. They want to do it, right? And let's say you're doing a walk. Let's say you're all working together. You're doing a walk on Thursdays, right? Thursday noon walk. I get this example from Georgetown. They do this, Georgetown University. And so 100 of them say, yes, I'm in, sounds great. So on Thursday morning, you send them all an email, and 2/3 of them read your email. Great, right? Never going to happen. But let's just say 2/3 of it read your email at that time, and you actually get their attention. Wonderful. Let's say 2/3 of them don't have a strong emotional reaction. Ooh, they're going to be judging how I look, right? 2/3 of them are okay with this, and they don't have a strong emotional reaction that says, no, I don't want to go out and exercise right now. 2/3 of them don't, well, 2/3 of them haven't hurt their knees, have the right shoes, whatever it might be, and the costs are less than the benefits. It actually makes sense for them to take action right then. And 2/3 of them know where the heck you're going. Yeah, so they actually remember where you were supposed to go that you told them a month ago, right? And it's not raining, right? Let's say it's across a large group, not raining, and everything else actually lines up in terms of the ability to go right then. And 2/3 of those guys, really, none of this is going to happen. I'm just trying to be generous here. 2/3 of them have nothing important to do, nothing more important to do that Thursday at noon. Because you know that's what's going to happen, right? They don't have a report due, they don't have a lunch with friends, they don't have to go see their kids, etc. Just from those, no prior experience, just from those, you're down into the high teens. That's the power of small frictions. Only a tiny portion of these people who all value what you're doing, all fully educated, all fully informed, only a small portion of them are actually going to take action. That's how these small things add up. That's why we look for the particular obstacles that people face. And so we can find those obstacles, of course, by looking at them, watching them, getting beyond the mindset of just motivation, getting beyond the mindset of yelling at people with information. We look and see, wow, yep, some people just didn't have the password for my portal. Oops. It takes a certain humility and seeing what are the real obstacles people face, and not saying, why, that was just stupid. If they just knew how important this was, they would get over that, right? They'd go find the password, right? They'd go get their shoes for running, whatever it might be. No, just assuming that we all have these problems. We watch them, we take notes, and we say, okay, given that obstacle, how can we help people overcome? Well, I'm going to go through a couple examples of things that you guys can do. And each of these come from randomized control trials, from experiments that either we've run or other people in the field have run. If you ask folks, so Dean Carlin, who's the head of a development agency at Yale, did this great study where he took folks who said that they wanted to save money, right? They wanted to save for the future. And he said, okay, great. He sent them a text message that said, you said you wanted to save. That's it. No accountability, no ratting them out if they're not even tracking whether they're doing it. 12% increase in savings like that. We're that frail. We just forget. It happens. We don't like to think about that, but sometimes we just forget. Now, how about this one? So, the words we use are tremendously important as well. If I were to ask you, I'll ask you guys, because you're close, and I can see what you're doing. So, Hersheys Kisses. How many of you would like to spend, I've got some back here, how many of you would like to spend a cent on Hersheys Kisses, or you can spend 15 cents and buy as many Lindt chocolate as you like? As many Hershey Kisses or as many Lindt chocolate? In fact, let's do it with everybody. Hersheys Kisses. Who wants the tiny little things? Not very good chocolate. Okay, who wants the Lindt chocolate? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, now, what happens if I drop the price, bargain basement sale, guys, 1 cent for all of them, okay? So, Lindt chocolate, 14 cents. Hershey's Kisses, they're free. I've got them here, get them fast. Who wants them free? Exactly. The math is the same. It's a 14-cent difference between the two. But free is tremendously powerful. So is the word you, so is the word my, personalization words. To the extent that there are magic wands in this field, which there really aren't, these are things that we are patterned to pay attention to, even though they've been abused by marketers for decades. Free really matters. So if you have a program that gives people free, healthy food, say it. Don't bury it. If you have a program that will give free guidance, free support in buying a house, in growing your business, say it. Say it's free and say that it's for them. Even if it's clear, even though you know it's for them, say it's for them. Say their job title, say their role, say their name. All of these things matter because they get our attention. They're pre-conscious. Non-conscious is perhaps a better term. They're part of that system one, right? They're part of our quick response. Now, sometimes people will look at a particular action and say, I don't know if savings is right for me. I don't know if you know, I'm not a tree-hugging liberal. I don't want to save money on my electricity. I am a tree-hugging liberal, by the way. O-Power built a billion-dollar industry, billion with a B, off of sending a piece of mail. You remember mail? Piece of paper comes in the slot, you put it in the trash. Piece of mail, put it in the trash, right? You feed it to the dog. They love it. And their innovation in this piece of mail was a bar chart. Everything else is the same. They put a bar chart in there, and that bar chart said, you're spending $200 on electricity. That on its own, who cares? Is that good? Is it bad? She's spending $150. And by the way, her house is the same size, same number of people. They don't actually do it personal. That'd be a little creepy. They do it on average, right? And that comparison, showing that other people are taking the action, is tremendously powerful. Billion-dollar industry, they've saved terawatts of energy just by that, okay? And at Hillel Wallet, we did something very similar in talking about savings. You're saving this much, here's how much other people are saving, burns people's blood. They want to get on that, they want to beat the competition. Great. It's kind of a yes you can moment and a yes you should. Yes you can because someone else is spending less than you are. I want to know how the heck they figured that out. And yes you should because, oh, are they judging me? Do they know that I'm spending more, that I'm a laggard, I'm wasting money? What happens? It's called the spotlight effect. The belief that we are constantly being watched by others, even when we're not, except sometimes you are in a spotlight. So, okay, here's an interactive one. Which one of these two do you think is more appealing? This is Dutch, so intentionally you can't read it. It's just look and feel, because this is a reaction. It's not a reading exercise. Which one do you think is more appealing? This is asking people to open savings accounts. Left or right? Right? Okay, I had to give you one easy one. Yes. 27% boost in account creation by design, by a small change in how something looks. Both of these look good. Astoundingly large differences by presentation. That's what we see again and again. Now, okay, insurance, protecting your family, okay? Which one's better? To say insurance is about peace of mind, it's about helping your family, or, yeah, insurance is quick, don't worry about it, it's easy. Which one? Okay, peace of mind. All right, insurance is quick and easy. Insurance is quick and easy. Too often in the industry, when we are involved in this field ourselves, we think about the benefits and we don't think about the costs. Try a different message with your people, the folks you're working with. There's so many facets, so many things that they could care about. I'm sorry, it's usually not the part you care about. And so we have to try different messages, things that we ask them. What do you care about? What is most important? And you try that with a different audience. We have to get beyond ourselves, step out of our skin. Here's a great study by Katie Milkman at Wharton, where this was for flu shots. They asked people, hey, you can get a flu shot. It's free. I think they put the word free in there. Good for them. Then they just said, okay, hey, get a flu shot. If you want, you can write down in this box when you're going to do it. That simple box, 14% increase in actual follow-through. Why? It's called implementation intentions. which is when you work out the specific details of, oh, if it is Thursday at 2 p.m., then I go get my flu shot. What you're doing is you're removing the need for thought later on down the line. You've already decided. Because any moment of thought, any additional decision you're requiring afterwards is an opportunity for distraction. So this simple box, just asking people to work through the logistical details, was tremendously powerful. There's a lot of discussion about decision paralysis, where people ask for everything in the world, all the features, all the information. Their conscious minds say, yes, tell me everything. Tell me the nutrition facts. But yet when they're actually confronted with it, they get overwhelmed, they don't read it, they don't act on it. There's a great study of jam where they put 24 options of jam, they put 6 options of jam. 24 options of jam got lots more people to come and look at them, right? To figure out which one they wanted. But fewer people actually bought it, actually made a choice than with 6. The paradox of choice. Our conscious minds ask for information, and the actual part that's controlling our behavior just can't handle it. Okay, the types of wordings we use matter immensely. This is in terms of making sure we know people can succeed, that self-efficacy. If you say, start today, right? Start this new program. I don't know what the heck that means. Am I going to succeed? Am I not? Am I not? It's vague. But if you say, get my account, get my menu plan, it's simple, it's straightforward, I know the benefits, I know I can do it. I know I can succeed. And we see huge impacts from that. We see that incentives are also quite powerful. They're quite powerful on things that are one-off actions. In my realm, there's a lot of discussion on how we can incentivize people to exercise more in the workplace, or how we can provide them incentives to save. It's great if the only thing you care about is them filling out that form. They don't actually follow through. So we look for particular examples of where we can use incentives, free stuff, etc. That doesn't assume follow-up action. Now, there are lots of techniques. This is an eye chart, intentionally. We have a great bag of tricks in the behavioral world to matching problem to solution. And so in my writing, I'm happy to share a link to a book I wrote that has a great detail about this, and I've got an online version that's free for you guys if you want. The key part is you have to know what the obstacle is before you find the intervention. If you say, hey, well, people just don't feel good about exercising, right? They don't like how they look, they don't want to be seen, and you just keep on pounding them with information about how important it is, the only thing you're going to get is frustrated people. You're not going to get people exercising more. Because the problem is one of that emotional reaction. And the solution that you're trying is one of information, is one of motivation, is one of evaluation. It doesn't work like that. We have to find the particular obstacle that people face. And so one way that I like to think about this, just very quickly, is if you were to see a fish out of water, do you go up to the fish, so kind of taking a step back from everything that I've talked about, everything we've talked about today, all of these interventions. The way that behavioralists think about it is really fish out of the water. If you see a fish lying on the beach and it's gasping, I can't really do a good fish, but I hope that got the point across. Is that better? Is that good? Okay, good, thank you, thank you. So you see a fish gasping for air. Do you go up to the fish and say, water is important, get in the water. Here's a pamphlet, here's some information, get in the water. Read it, you'll learn, you'll know what to do. No. There are 2 things we can do instead. We can pick the fish up. Here's the water. And the fish is fine. It's called automation. Finding ways to make it easier to take action and pull the burden of work from them to you. Providing the meal plan instead of having them figure it out themselves. Going through the details of, okay, this is what the exercise would look like, right? Here's what's involved, you're not going to look terrible, etc. Pulling that burden of work onto yourself, picking up the fish out of water. Or, alternatively, if you don't feel like picking up the fish, you can dig a channel in the water and then pour water over the fish. What you're doing is you can change the environment to make it easier for action. And as you may have noticed, almost all of the interventions that I was talking about, all the things we can do, providing cues, right? things on people's wrists, like the Fitbit or trackers, etc. Making a peer comparison. They're not about fundamentally changing human nature, because that will never change. We are irrevocably frail. It's just who we are. But we can change our environments, and we can help people by either automating, by asking them to do something which is naturally easier for them. So instead of asking somebody who is a couch potato to go run a marathon, you start with something like, okay, great, let's walk a mile. And something you guys know intuitively. What you're doing is called choice architecture. That's the theme throughout all of this. Changing the environment, changing what we're asking people to do rather than trying to change them. Okay? And that, basically, is the talk. In quick summary, don't get frustrated if you see that people aren't taking action, if they say that they want to exercise, etc., but they don't actually follow through. It's not because they're insincere. It's not because they're lazy. It's because instead they're human. They're constrained. Now, we understand what many of these obstacles are. You can remember it with the acronym CREATE. The initial cue, the strong emotional reaction, the evaluation of cost and benefits, the ability to take action, the timing and the overriding power of past experience. And when we understand what the obstacle is that people are facing, we have many, many techniques that can help them, that involve changing how we ask, that involve changing what we ask them to do, and not asking them to change who they are, not yelling at a fish out of water. And with that, I'm literally all ears. We'd love to answer any questions you might have. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to speak with you. Great. So I know we were running long and getting started, so I don't know, how much time do we have? Do we have time for questions?
I don't make the rules, so.
All right.
No.
Well, then go ahead. You're on the stage, man. You can make up the rules.
No. Please, if anybody's got a question for Steve, take this opportunity
sure.
now, and then we'll move on with our session.
Okay.
If not, I'm sure Steve doesn't have anywhere to be right away. And
yes. Oh, there we go.
There
okay.
comes a question.
And we should have some mics up there as well. Okay. Yes.
Okay, based on the principles that you just shared, what would you identify as the most successful behavior change program in health or personal finance that you have ever seen?
Absolutely. So this is almost always the first question that I get, and I almost always disappoint people, so I just wanted to set that expectation. There is none. Not in a universal way, not in the way that we really want, which is just tell me what to do. Tell me what technique to use, tell me what program to use, and I'll use it with my people. Because while we have commonalities in our minds, our experiences are different. Which emotional reactions we have are different. What our particular costs and benefits are for a particular audience are different. And so what we look for, the answers are in the specific. The answers are in applying your expertise, your knowledge of the individuals, your knowledge of the people you're working with, and applying these. So there aren't any magic wands. There aren't any programs which just work universally. But we find that programs that adapt to the individual and provide lots of different options, better. So Hillel Wallet is unusual in this field and has been unusually effective, right? The fitness trackers, for their audience, and again, for their audience, they have not worked universally, they have been surprisingly effective. They have behavioral economists on staff who are working on the application design and working on using these principles in that way, but not in the way you probably want. So, other questions? We apply in the particular. We apply the lessons in the process of figuring out the obstacles and then finding the solution for them. That's where we find the solutions, is by digging into the details. So, yes? Sure. So she asked, what was the book or the resource? So two parts. So I've written a couple books on this topic. That particular chart came from a book called Improving Employee Benefits. And it is available, the digital version is available online through Hillel Wallet, www.hillelwallet.com. And somewhere in there, there's a link. The top link is research, and you'll see the book there. You can get a digital version. Also, if you want to email me, my information, well, it was up there. Steve at Hillel Wallet or Steve.Wendel at Morningstar. I'm happy to send you a copy as well. But beyond what I've written, the books that I would really recommend out there are Thinking Fast and Slow by Danny Kahneman. He's the Nobel laureate who founded the field. Oh, that's smarter than I am. Just an amazing guy. Clear, thoughtful research. Nudge is a nice popular press version of kind of how this stuff works. And then in particular domains in health and finance, there are also particular books if you guys want, and I can follow up with afterwards. Other questions? I hope that answered your question? Great. Okay, other questions, or are we good? I look out upon the group. I see a stunned silence. Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.